moved into my van 4 years ago and started traveling, I expected freedom, adventure, and a simpler life. What I didn't expect was that van life would actually reveal something about my brain. Living in such a small space, constantly changing places, and being on my own a lot, suddenly patterns started to show up that I could not ignore anymore. And it's this journey that eventually led me to discover that I am both ADHD and autistic. So in this video, I want to talk about how van life actually exposed those traits and what I learned about myself along the way.
Hey everyone, welcome to a new video in my 4 years van life series. Today's topic is how living in the van and doing van life revealed my neurodivergent traits. Before I started thinking about van life, I was single, living in a big house, multiple rooms, I think like a 5-bedroom house. I had a business, a dog walking service, and I had a routine. I had a horse I would go to every day, take care of. I had my dogs, and I just wanted more out of life. And then I started looking into tiny houses, and then I started looking into van life, and I decided that that was it. I was going to do van life. And that was around the period that COVID started being a thing. Because COVID came and it changed all of the things, so it made all my routines different anyway, I started feeling like I wanted something different, and I thought that was the right point to make a pivot in my life, and I decided to uproot everything. So I sold my business, had a plant web shop that didn't really work out, and I had different plans by then, so I changed that business. So when I decided to sell my business, I had time to do my van build. I was living in a house where there was a big working shed behind, so that was very awesome, and there was lots of room around the house. So I was now doing my plant web shop, building my van, starting my YouTube channel, taking care of my horse, and I was planning on keeping my house and then working parts of the year in that house with my plant web shop, have enough money to travel with the van again. And I soon discovered that that was not going to work out in the way I had intended it. So then I decided I was going to do van life full time. When I had decided to do van life full time, I think that was my ADHD. Looking back on it, I think that was my ADHD impulsivity going like, okay, this is going to be a great adventure. Life is going to be like all options are going to be open again. This is going to be a total reset. So then 4 years ago, the 1st of March, I moved into the van, and the first night I was thinking, okay, now what? I figured I'll just go traveling and I'll vlog everything and it's all going to be fine. And very quickly, I realized a lot of things about myself that I never really knew before. And that's how I discovered I was neurospicy. The first time I did a really big trip, I discovered that I had road anxiety. And there were multiple things coming together that made this very obvious and made it very, how do you say that? Prudent, or made it come to the surface. And one of the things was that I was leaving, I think, like in the end of December, and it was cold and wet, and it kind of felt like fleeing and finding the sun. So I was traveling very quickly, very fast through Belgium, France, into Spain. And basically, when I started traveling, I was experiencing neurodivergent burnout, but I didn't know that at the time. I was just tired, I wanted to rest, and I wanted to escape the life that I was leaving behind and then travel and have fun and do my YouTube. But because I did not know I was neurodivergent, I also didn't understand the processes that I was going through. So I had lots of road anxiety, and that was quite bad actually. I remember having so much stress, and I remember that I didn't want to take the toll roads. This is also where, if you look back on my travel videos from that time, I think I was so badass, and I'm very impressed with myself because I didn't know I was neurodivergent. So my ADHD was just leading. I just did everything. Then once we were in a scary situation, it almost felt like my ADHD was leaving me behind, and then my autism took over, and that was the part that was freaking me out and almost shutting down. I remember I didn't want to take any toll roads, so I decided to just take other roads, and I drove straight into the Pyrenees. And then I was with this big van, and it was the first time driving abroad, and I had just gotten used to it. It takes a little while to get used to this big van. And then I was in a town, and then it sent me right and left. I believe at that point I could no longer turn around, and it just sent me straight up a hill, up a mountain. And I remember driving up there and getting scared shitless. But I also saw that if I would go over that road, I would be on the other side. I would be into Spain, and that was what I really wanted. But mind you, it's a automatic vehicle, was my first automatic vehicle. Back then, I didn't know that I could use my gear, is that a gear shift? To shift back into gear and prevent it from going up into gear. I was so afraid I was going to destroy my brakes and that we were going to just roll down the mountain. So going up the mountain was very scary, and going down the mountain was equally scary. But then we got into Spain, and that was where I just thought to myself, like, whoa, I really don't like hills. I really don't like this small roads. And then people, you know, there were also people coming, and it was very, you could look down. Luckily, we drove on the right side of the road, and I saw that if I would have been driving on the other side of the road, I would have been looking straight down. So I was very happy that that was not the case. But I remember thinking like, whoa, that was very scary. But I'm very proud that I did that, and we survived, you know, everything's okay. But those type of things take so much of my energy. But I didn't know anything about myself, about my neurodivergence. So I just thought, okay, people experience this. Everybody does this every day. It's normal. It's okay. So I'll just continue. Like, it's not a big deal. You got scared. It's over now. But I didn't realize that my cortisol was just building and building and building, and I was getting scarier and scarier. That was one of the things that was pretty bad. I was discovering I had lots of anxiety. Then another thing that I have, I don't think it's super bad, but it's a thing that's not really nice if your vehicle is your house. I am a car hypochondriac. Because of my autism and maybe my ADHD, I hear every slight sound, every slight difference in the engine sounds. Every time something starts vibrating a little bit more, every time something sounds a little bit off, or she responds a little bit different, I feel all those little changes. So my mind a lot of the time goes to bad places. Now, I've had lots of maintenance done on her, but to me it feels like she has an aneurysm, and there's no other way I can explain it. There's something wrong in the engine, and it spritzes some, I think it's like gasoline, I don't know, the diesel. There's like a little piece that's a little bit damaged, and they can repair it. They said it was going to be around 1,000 euros. I've actually asked them to repair it, but they said they have to take the entire engine apart. And I one time I looked up what it was. I don't remember what it was. Something combustion or something. Anyway, what is happening is that part has been broken ever since I got her, so it's a little bit damaged. And he said, you can go years with this issue with nothing happening, and then one day it can actually break more, and then you will have to have it repaired. And the only thing that happens when it breaks fully is that you will lose your turbo engine, which I'm not looking forward to either. But he said if we take it apart now and we fix everything, there's a chance we're going to make more damage. So if they take stuff apart, other things are going to break when they take it apart, and then it's going to be a whole repair, and it might never be the same again. So the advice is to just not mess with it as long as it's not completely broken. To me, this feels like there's an aneurysm in my car, and anytime I leave or anytime she might get too hot or whatever, I don't know how it's going to get worse, or if it's ever going to get worse, and where I'm going to be in the world once that happens. So that's, yeah, those things, I don't like those things. So I have I do lots of more maintenance on her than maybe is necessary. I have her checked all the time. I have the air conditioning filled up because I don't want my dogs and I to get warm. And I have the tires checked. I have everything checked. I do the MOT always in time so they can fix things. She has some rust on her that I need to keep an eye on. And that, you know, last year they had to weld something under the van. So I've always been a little bit of a car hypochondriac, but because she's now also my house, the stakes are much higher. So now I'm not saying that it's getting worse. I'm just saying that it is there, and I'm trying to just be relaxed and everything's going to be okay. And if anything breaks down, we'll have it fixed, or, you know, it'll work out. But I am a car hypochondriac, and it does influence my day-to-day life living in a van. So I'm looking at the first time that I went traveling, the first year, because I think that was the year that gave me the most clarity about my neurodivergence. When I started traveling the first time, I basically had neurodivergent burnout. I didn't know what was going on. I was craving sugars all the time. Like, my hormone structure with cortisol and everything was super out of whack. And I was just sustaining it by keeping myself stressed. I was driving, but I didn't have that much money, so that was stressful. So I wanted to see a lot. So I was driving a lot, which was adding to the road anxiety, and I wanted to experience lots of it. But at the same time, I don't really know how to explain this. I couldn't really find my way. I have to say, I did really enjoy traveling, and I did really enjoy going to the south of Europe in winter. It's really nice. It's sunny. It's beautiful. It's not too hot. There's nice markets. You know, it's lots of fun. But I remember, I think on my first trip, there was a light burning about my brakes, and I'm a Dutch girl. In the Netherlands, everything is basically flat. There's a couple of places in the Netherlands that have some hills, but not too much. So I'm not really used to driving hills. So as soon as I'm driving in hilly territory or mountainy territory, and my light goes on that there's something wrong with the brakes, I freak out. So luckily I got some help, and they checked it out, and they said, no, it's probably just a sensor. So they checked in, it was all fine. Then I think also in the first year, I think that's the year that I went to Gordon Bruce and helped out with the dog in the Malcata Animal Association. My alternator broke, so I was in Portugal, and then lights burned, and then my alternator broke. But at that point, I already made friends, so that was feeling a little less stressful because I had like backup, and I had friends that could take me places. Gordon actually took me to a hotel, and I stayed in a beautiful town for a night. It wasn't a hotel, it was like a, I don't know, Airbnb. It was like a bed and breakfast sort of situation. I was very stressed that whole trip. This was where the ADHD versus autism really was shining, because my ADHD wanted to go places and see things and do things, and my autism was overstimulated, overwhelmed all the stinking time. And I was really pressuring myself, and I did have fun looking back on it, but in that moment I was so stressed. I would have days where I would just be overwhelmed with making choices, overwhelmed with even going anywhere. So I would just lay in the bed all day, watch series, try and recover and try and relax. And then after a couple of days, I needed to start moving again. So I started moving again, but then I couldn't find. It was very stressful. And it was around that time that I started noticing more about, I started seeing on TikTok, I think, about ADHD in women. And I started relating to that. I started thinking, oh, maybe this is what is happening to me, or maybe that's what is happening to me. And I'd always kind of thought that I was different than other people. And I'd always kind of thought that I view the world different, or that sometimes I would say things that people would interpret the wrong way, or they would think I was rude, or I would always have a different view at the world. I would always censor myself. I was masking a shit ton. I was masking a lot. I'm probably still masking, but I'm now aware of it. But I was masking so much. I wasn't really being myself. And I started learning about ADHD in women, and it started clicking. And I started thinking, oh my gosh, I need to do something about this. If this is actually the case, But then I started feeling like a normal hypochondriac. I started creating this neurodivergence in my head. Like, this is not me. I just, like, this doesn't suit me. Like, what if it's not me? And I remember going to the ADHD diagnosis day. It was an entire day. And that once I got in there, I was just crying. I was sitting there crying. They had like this Mandela book where I was drawing, and I was just crying, eating chocolates and crying. And then I went into the exam and I was just crying the whole time. Like somebody was finally listening to my story. And I don't know why I got so emotional. When I think about it, I kind of still get emotional. But I had been suppressed for so long. I had been masking for so long. People had always told me that I was just overreacting and that, you know, just be normal, do normal. And of course, lots of people around me and in my bloodline are also neurodivergent. I have one nephew that has been diagnosed ADHD, but nobody has been diagnosed with anything except for me now. But because I was surrounded by so many neurodivergent people, I kind of, you know, I was kind of normal. So when I got my ADHD diagnosis, we started medication, and that was a whole journey because women and ADHD medication, I can make an entire different video about that because that's a whole hassle. But it took me a really long time to figure it out. Actually, I think now since a couple of months, since 4 months, I'm now on a different medication, and I think we finally cracked the code, which is almost 2 years after my diagnosis. So that's pretty bad. But the medication started really helping. And it's giving me more clarity, it's giving me more focus, but it also made me realize that I kind of thought before my ADHD diagnosis that I would probably also have autism, so I would have AuDHD, but that was difficult to have diagnosed at the same time, so I had to wait until my ADHD diagnosis before I could start getting in line for autism diagnosis, which I did not have a good experience getting that diagnosis. It was horrible. I can make another video about that. If people are interested, let me know. I can make a whole video about how my autism diagnosis actually went in the Netherlands and how I do not like that process. ADHD was better. But once I was medicated, I started thinking, yeah, I'm now medicated for ADHD. And also, real ADHD people would annoy me. If I would meet people, well, that's kind of sorry. I'm not annoyed by ADHD people, but they would overwhelm me. If I would meet just only ADHD people, they would overwhelm me and they would overstimulate me so much, and they would always be so much more like more vibrant. I don't really know how to say this, but I really struggle with social interactions, and I never really thought that true ADHD people, just only ADHD people, don't really have that. But maybe they also do, I don't know. Anyway, now I was ADHD diagnosed and medicated. I traveled some more, but I really realized, okay, this road anxiety and everything, you know, it's getting better. I'm doing way better now medicated, but it's still, I was still not feeling like that was the bottom of everything we needed to find out. And then I had my autism diagnosis. I'm not going to get into how that went. If you want to hear about that, let me know. I'll make a video about it. But then I had my autism diagnosis, and then it clicked. I have AuDHD, so I have both of them, which is like a whole different subgroup of neurodivergence, because you have ADHD and then you have autism and then you have the combination. So basically, I am a super contradicting person in my mind. Everything is super contradicting. So I crave lots of new adventures and stimulants or stimuli, and I crave new things every day, and I love exploring new things. And at the other end, I get overwhelmed by doing new things, and I get overwhelmed by new places, and I get overwhelmed by insecurity, and I crave routine. And the ADHD part doesn't like routine and wants to stir it up, and then wants to do impulsive things. And then the autism part doesn't like impulsive things, and they like stability and living my normal life. So living my life with the routine that I had with my dog walking service and my horse. I was also struggling, but I had my house. I had my routine in the house. I had a place for my shoes. I still have a place for my shoes. But I had, I would walk the same path with my dogs every day. I would basically encounter the same people. If I would like them or not, I knew what it was going to be like. I would go to the same grocery store. I would buy the same stuff. I would go I knew what times to go, that there weren't going to be that many people. You have a routine. You create these routines for yourself that make it bearable. That's basically I had routines to make life bearable for myself. I think that's a good way to put it. So, and I would go to social interaction because I always thought I really loved that, but then I would be masking so much and getting so overstimulated, and it was way too much. And there were a couple of times where I would let my guard down, where I would just think, okay, I'm just going to dance goofy. I'm just going to let the energy burst. And then people would always say, whoa, what did you drink? Oh my God, what drugs are you on? And that would always push me back into masking so much, because if I just let my overstimulated self, look at a kid that's overstimulated and see how they try and release that. Just if I get overstimulated at a party and I just let the music, take over and just dance goofy and go crazy, people think I am on some sort of they think that I'm on lots of speed drugs, which I'm not. It's just my overstimulated self bursting and showing its true face, like unmasking. And so that's how I discovered through van life that I am neurodivergent. And luckily I was able to get diagnosed, because I was a hypochondriac getting the ADHD diagnosis. I was worried I was wasting their time. I was there and I couldn't, I was going to waste their time, that I wasn't going to get diagnosed. And with the autism, the exact same thing. I thought, okay, it's just ADHD, you're overreacting. And these are all things that people have taught me my entire life. So this is just my internal monologue. And one of the things that shocked me the most about this entire process is that I thought if I would get my diagnosis, people would have a better understanding of how I function. That's not at all the case. Because my struggle is, I think it's getting better, but my struggle was like 80%, 85% on the inside. People had no idea. People would actually say to me, my mom has actually said this to me. There's a Dutch program on television of female truck drivers. And she actually said to me, oh, I've been watching this program about female truck drivers. That will be a good profession for you. And I would think like, what? What are you talking about? Driving a truck through cities? What are you talking about? But that's because this struggle that I am having is mostly on the inside, and it's not really coming out. Now, I have to say that I do have some people that have watched my videos for many, many years. And one of them I've actually been in contact with. She is, hi. She does diagnosis for a living. She already had seen all the signs in me, but I didn't, not really. So now that I have this knowledge about myself, I can take way better care of myself, and I do so. And I'll make a video about how I have changed things in van life, or how I do it now so that it really accommodates my neurodivergence. Now, one of the things that I do really love about my neurodivergence, and if I go traveling, is my object permanence. I've really realized that saying goodbye to a spot, or saying goodbye to a place or to people, to me, is really not that hard. As soon as I leave, I don't like it because it's my comfort bubble and I need to leave it behind. And that's like the big step that I need to take. But once I'm gone, I kind of forget that you exist, and I kind of forget that you're also out there. And I just forget about you, and I don't miss you. So for me, that's really nice. Of course, I keep in touch with people, and there are people that I do keep in touch with, but still, if they're not in contact with me for a while, I don't miss it. And I do think that that's a good thing about my neurodivergence with traveling, that I don't miss the people. I sometimes miss the feeling of the comfort that I have in a certain place, or at a certain, at home, if you have like a steady base, feels more comfortable, you can get your routine, but I don't really miss people. And I think that's such a cool thing about neurodivergence. So this was it for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you have any more questions, please comment down below. If you would like to support my channel and my future van ventures, you are welcome to do so through my channel membership. And I will see you in the next one. And in the meantime, don't forget to say yes to new van ventures. By the way, the outro is like my big masking thing. I always feel like once I start into the thank you so much for watching, that my mask goes on. But it's just a line that I have to think about saying it. Bye.